I think it probably looks at our entry at the main door.
Insert Yang, Weiwei's longtime art assistant, shows me the new surveillance cameras.
Over there at the corner is another camera.
Weiwei quickly turned his own camera back on the government, getting the photos out on his Twitter feed and incorporating the cameras into his artworks.
That's basically his life, and he doesn't make a big difference between art and the architecture and the political activities, you know. It's just whether it interests him or it doesn't, you know.
The guy here, they're watching me.
And then there's the surveillance van periodically parked outside of his home.
He's just sleeping in there?
Yeah, they're there all night.
He didn't in any way abide by the implicit rules of that relationship, which is that you're supposed to pretend you don't know you're being followed, and they're supposed to pretend that they're not following you.
Everybody said China changed a lot. To me, it doesn't change in a certain sense. And that's what I value the most, you know, such as freedom of speech and, you know, the liberation of the mind, and, you know, all those things are never changed.
Weiwei didn't give up his earthquake project. In the summer of 2009, he headed back to Sichuan province to support a local earthquake activist who'd been jailed by the government. Weiwei spread the word, and a mass of his followers made the trip out to Sichuan to attend the man's trial. They gathered at a hotel the night before Weiwei was going to show up in court. That's when local officials found out. Weiwei's friend, the rock musician Zuoshao Zuzhou, was in the room next door.
大概3点钟的时候啊，咚咚咚咚咚咚咚咚咚。
谁啊？警察？什么警察？派出所警察。派出所警察这个晚上敲门干嘛？
他准备了这个录音笔，他知道这个后面要一个很大的这个事情发生。
你打人是吧？你这么多人说你打人吗？说话要讲证据。不打人，我一定会是这样吗？自己撕的。
Weiwei had been hit in the head by the police, but they blamed him for his own injuries. In the hotel elevator, surrounded by police, Weiwei snapped this photo. Then he tweeted it to his online followers, who got it out around the world.
而大家更感兴趣的是，为什么他这样批评，他没有事情，所以 logically 他最后到了公安局被人 hitting， 这个是大家在担心的一件事情，或者是 expecting 就 one day going to happen, then it happened.
A month later, Weiwei opened a major new exhibition in Munich. It was his biggest solo show yet, featuring many signature works. But just before the opening, Weiwei began complaining of a headache. He was rushed to the hospital. In emergency surgery, doctors found bleeding in his brain, presumably from the beating in the hotel room.
对于艾未未这样的一个活着的时候比安迪沃霍还要出名的一个艺术家来说，他不需要做这样的事情，做这样的事情是相当的危险。
In his hospital recovery room, Weiwei sent a message to the police back in China. Then he uploaded the photos for his followers.
Some photos at the right moment completely changed the history. To tell the truth, no matter big truth or small truth, it's always should be justified.
The show in Munich went on. It was capped by a giant installation covering the museum's facade with children's backpacks, just like the ones Weiwei had seen in Sichuan. The backpack spelled out a sentence told to him by the mother of an earthquake victim. It read simply, "She lived happily on this earth for 7 years."
它很精彩，就是它能够把它直接的反应很自然的变成作品，但同时，当代艺术又没有人是这样做的。
Later, back home in Beijing, Wei Wei's own mother would deal with the news of her son's beating.
这德国的文学杂志，
这你的
在我的呢啊。
你看好多文章关于你的儿子，感觉怎么样？
感觉很骄傲，很自豪，因为他会为老百姓可以说话。他就是在农场长大的，他是跟我们过了很长的一段很艰苦的日子，很苦很苦。
When Ai Weiwei was growing up, his father Ai Qing had been branded a class enemy, and the family was exiled to Western China. There, Weiwei watched his father, one of the country's most famous poets, reduced to cleaning toilets during the Cultural Revolution. Weiwei also saw his father maintain his spirit of resistance, a family trait that now has Weiwei's mother worried for her son.
休息最重要啊！
天天睡不好觉。
那这干嘛呀？还不是没必要的吗？
他们能够欺负你。
哎，那这个事儿，欺负我那是肯定要欺负的，这个不是咱们自己能够解决的事情。
这些人。
Most of the other Chinese artists I know have gone on to having very nice houses, fancy cars, and I don't think they would do anything to damage their lifestyle. Weiwei would put his life on the line for something that he believes in.
After almost a year and a half, Weiwei still wouldn't drop his earthquake campaign. In April 2010, he went back to confront the police in Sichuan who had beaten him in his hotel room. This time, he didn't just bring a lawyer. He brought his personal videographer Zhao Zhao, me, 2 Chinese filmmakers, a New Yorker reporter, and several assistants to post live to Twitter.
我来是控告对我的，主要是对我的伤害。
To a reasonable viewer who walked in and didn't know what was going on, you would have assumed it was some kind of reality show. Are you expecting a successful result now?
The result, I don't think so.
I asked him why he bothers to go through this process. He was wasting basically the whole afternoon on a process that he knew was ultimately doomed. And he said, well, you can't just say that the system is flawed. You have to work through the system and show it in all of its detail, and that's the only way that you can ultimately make a critique. Over the course of the afternoon, he'd been twittering about the fact that he was going to have dinner that night at a Lao Ma Ti Hua restaurant, which is a place that specializes in a certain kind of pig's trotter. And as soon as we got to the restaurant, it was this weird sensation where all of a sudden these people who'd been standing on the sidewalk, milling around, doing things, turned out to be people who had come to have dinner with him. And everybody there knew that by simply eating dinner there, it was an act of defiance.
对对对，都有。哎，请坐，请坐。不坐，看一下，心满意足了，都有。谢谢啊。
As if on cue, city police showed up and asked Weiwei to move the party indoors. But he outmaneuvered them. Then, when the police started filming us, Weiwei sent his own videographer Zhao Zhao to record them.
他有流氓的一面，就是他知道怎么对付流氓，啊，因为共产党就是流氓嘛，绝对是流氓，所以你必须也差不多是个流氓。
Over the months that followed, there would be more encounters. Weiwei was briefly put under house arrest. And at the end of last year, he was stopped while trying to leave the country. Then, in January, this happened. Weiwei's new studio complex in Shanghai was bulldozed by the government. The studio had taken Weiwei 2 years to build. His response was to show the demolition live online. Then he declared it one of his most powerful artworks ever.
Do you ever examine yourself to say, why is it that you are so fearless compared to other people?
I'm so fearful. That's not fearless. I'm more fearful than other people maybe. Then I act more brave because I know the danger is really there. If you don't act, the danger becomes stronger.